Welcome to Fireside Giants. My name is Alex with my co-host here, Anthony Rivardo. Guys, I'm still upset. I'm still angry, still livid over yesterday's performance. If you watched our post-game analysis, it was quite depressing. We were just completely destroyed. When you're going to the season with such high expectations, or at least expectations that you're not going to get blown out by, a team that, Denver's a good team, don't get me wrong, but they made Teddy Bridgewater look like Joe Montana out there, and we did not expect that. We thought we had top 5 defense right out of the gate after last year, having some experience together in the same defensive coordinator and adding some pieces. We thought it was going to look a lot better than that. But again, obviously they had some struggles. We're going to talk about 5 different takeaways. Most of them are negative. Some of them are positive that we can, harp on to go ahead into week 2 with against a Washington team that's going to be without Ryan Fitzpatrick. He has a hip injury that's going to place him on IR. He will be out for multiple weeks. They will be going with Heineke, however you pronounce his name, who actually didn't look that bad after Fitzpatrick was knocked out. But he also is a younger quarterback who you can disguise coverages. You can force him to make bad plays. And the Giants will do just that. They will get to him next week. Teddy Bridgewater is far and away a better quarterback than him. Now, the hardest part about that game is going to be, overcoming their strong defensive front and good secondary. The Chargers had a tough time scoring touchdowns yesterday. But, we'll talk about, what we saw in this game for the Giants, the things that we need to clean up, some things that keep popping up that may not even be alleviated ever. But, Anthony, before we dive into all this kind of nitty-gritty stuff, how are you doing tonight, my friend?
I'm doing all right. I'm not doing good because I'm still feeling the effects of that loss yesterday. It was a super disappointing and embarrassing performance from the New York Giants, which we're here to once again discuss and kind of reflect on a day later, a day removed from that game. It's reflection time, right? What went right for the Giants? What went wrong? Obviously, we know a lot went wrong, but it's not everything that went wrong. There were some positive takeaways to have, and we're going to get into those as well as the negative. And again, we're also going to look forward to Thursday because we have a very short week this week. We play again this Thursday. It's only Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and once again, we're playing another game. So we got 3 days here before we have to prepare for another matchup. It's going to be an interesting one, as Alex mentioned. No Ryan Fitzpatrick. A lot of people actually believe that Heineke is better than Fitzpatrick anyway. I don't really subscribe to that belief. Some people do. But I think it'll be interesting to see Giants week 2. They're coming off of a loss, a really disappointing loss. Can they bounce back in week 2 against a backup quarterback? That's going to be something. But in order for them to do that, they're going to have to improve on the weaknesses and the negative things that happen on Sunday that we discuss in this video. Those are going to be really important as we head into Thursday. So ready to reflect once again and get into it, Alex.
Absolutely. So let's jump into the first takeaway from this game, and it's not going to be pretty. The first takeaway that we noticed, and after I rewatched the entire game this morning, specifically the offensive plays, and I watched them a lot because we didn't have that many. I was skipping through to find the offensive plays, and there were times where I was sitting there pressing 10 seconds ahead for literally like 2 or 3 minutes straight because the Broncos had 10-yard or 10-minute drives on multiple occasions. The Giants had 25 minutes of possession. A lot of it was nothing special. A lot of it was garbage time minutes. I really think the Giants only scored 7 points in this game. I know the score sheet says 13, but they really only scored 7 points in this game, to be real. And Daniel Jones, he is a guy who can make all the throws. He has the athleticism to run. He is a gifted player, but he makes the same mistakes over and over and over and over again. And at this point, I simply cannot justify him correcting these ever. You know what I mean? It has been 2 years and 1 game. And in those 2 years, those first 2 years, we saw way too many turnovers, including over 25 fumbles, okay? We needed to see a better game from him, and we needed to see he alleviated some of those problems, and they showed up in week 1 of year 3. He's not going to have a Josh Allen-like season. It's not going to happen. It is borderline impossible for him to have that kind of season. And that fumble he had, despite him tucking the football, having little child arms, and they are punching it out. Slide, dude. The game is built around protecting quarterbacks, and he's going out there trying to take hits from linebackers, and they're looking to punch the ball out. You know what I mean? He's holding the ball, like barely clutching it with 2 hands. And it's just bad all around. And this is a problem that we've been talking about for over 2 years now that he still hasn't fixed. And I don't think he's ever going to fix it at this point. They're just going to have to live with it and hope that he can score more than he fumbles or turns the ball over, which also is very, very unlikely considering they scored 7 points yesterday. 7 points. And we're going to talk about how little they use Kenny Golladay in a couple minutes, because that was a big reason for me. And I was sitting there like, dude, what are you guys doing? Like, you have your number one receiver you just paid $80 million to, or $74 million to, and he's not even getting any targets. Daniel Jones, not alleviating these turnover problems. He's staring down receivers. There was a couple instances where he was targeting Saquon Barkley, and he wasn't even looking anywhere else. He was staring him down to a degree that I have never seen. There was one pass that he had in the red zone. There was 4 guys surrounding Saquon Barkley, and he still threw it to him. 4 in the red zone. You can't do that. You got to get through your progressions. I'd rather him take a sack than try and throw into quadruple coverage. Like, as a quarterback and you're throwing into that type of coverage, that tells me all I need to know about a quarterback's vision. He clearly doesn't have good vision, because if you're making that throw, you're not even looking at your other receivers. You're just trying to fit the ball in because that was your first read or your only read, which is a huge question mark for me. That's a huge problem, and he's done this many times in the past. There was another play where Nate Solder got absolutely blown up by Von Miller. It was a running back screen on the left side, and he completely stared down Saquon Barkley, the defensive back that was on Saquon, didn't even budge. Like, he just stood right next to him, didn't even budge, didn't do anything, didn't even pump fake it to the side, didn't even look off the safety or look off anybody. He just straight up called hike, stared down Saquon Barkley, and it was over. And you can't be giving away the play that easily. We saw it in the preseason when that touchdown off the seam to Caden Smith. He looked off the safety and nailed him deep. I don't understand why the regular season comes around and Daniel Jones takes 10 steps backward. You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense to me, Anthony. What did you notice from Daniel Jones? And these same problems keep sparking up every time. It doesn't look like anything he did this offseason really works. And, of course, a little premature. We'll see if he alleviates them throughout the course of the season. But, I mean, come on, week 1, year 3, he's doing the same crap we've seen the last 2 seasons, and it's starting to get on my nerves.
Yeah, the thing with Daniel Jones, it always has been this way, and it still is this way, which is a problem in itself. But it's always he's playing so well until he isn't, right? He's playing a great game, then he turns the ball over, and then he just falls apart for the rest of the game. He never responds well after one of those turnovers. It's like, I remember Eli Manning back in the day. He had some turnover problems throughout his career, right? But he didn't get phased by his turnovers. If he would throw a horrible interception or fumble the ball, he would bounce back on the next drive and hopefully, usually, come back and respond maybe with a touchdown, or at least just play well afterwards. He doesn't look demoralized after he turns the ball over and doesn't have his statistical performance go from 70% completion to 45% completion, which is what happened to Daniel Jones. He was completing most of his passes. He had a touchdown. He was gaining yardage. And then he fumbles and he completes less than half of his passes. And he's not gaining yardage and he's not getting in the end zone. And the Giants' offense is stagnant and stale. Now, there's a lot of different confounding variables that go into this offense being stagnant and stale. Jason Garrett and his play calling has a lot to do with that. But of course, the quarterback is also there to be a playmaker, right? If you look around the NFL and you look at all the different quarterbacks in the league, you look at guys like Lamar Jackson. He in himself is a playmaker, right? You talk about your skill position playmakers. The quarterback can be a playmaker as well. Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, another young name that you can mention. Josh Allen, a young name that you can mention. There are guys around the league that make plays. Zach Wilson yesterday got flushed out of the pocket, threw a 22-yard strike on the run for a touchdown to Corey Davis. There are playmakers at the quarterback position. Daniel Jones, every now and then, he'll escape from the pocket on 4th down and pick up some yardage. Cool, okay. But he doesn't do this stuff on a consistent basis. He's not being a playmaker right now, and that needs to change. The Giants need more big plays out of him. Take this statistic, for example. The Giants threw 2 passes of 20-plus yards downfield yesterday, right? 2 passes on 37 attempts, only traveled 20-plus yards. That is inexplicable considering that the Giants were playing from behind for the majority of the game, but they're still not aggressive enough to go downfield. So yes, we can blame Jason Garrett and say he's not putting any vertical route concepts into this playbook. He's not calling the plays. You can't tell me that he only called one play to go vertical, because the one completion that the Giants had 20-plus yards downfield was a free play where Daniel Jones and Darius Slayton realized that there was a penalty on the defense. So Slayton ran a go and Daniel Jones hit him on a perfect pass. That wasn't even a scripted play. That was off script. They went vertical. So yes, clearly there's not enough vertical plays being scripted into this offense, but also You can't tell me that there weren't other opportunities that Daniel Jones just didn't take if he only threw 2 total deep passes the entire game. There's no way that there was nothing out there for him. He's not being aggressive enough. Jason Garrett is not being aggressive enough. He's in the third quarter, second half of the third quarter when the Giants are down by 2 possessions trying to establish the run. From top to bottom, this is a failure. This whole offense was a failure yesterday. The only guy who looked ready to go was Sterling Shepard. He played a phenomenal game. But for the most part, you saw receivers dropping passes. You saw the offensive line. I mean, they had a good game, but on the right side of the line, it wasn't a good game. On the right tackle position was completely underprepared. The quarterback seemed underprepared. I can go on and on and on, but at the end of the day, the biggest problem is this did not look like the 2021 New York Giants. This looked like the 2020 New York Giants. That's my biggest issue with this game. This didn't look like a new team with a new scheme, with new players that they spent $80 million on losing a game. This looked like the exact same team losing the exact same game in the exact same fashion as last season. That shit pisses me off. That's inexplicable, and you're not going to win games until you turn that around. You can't be the same team year to year when you haven't had a winning record since 2017. That's not going to happen. The Giants right now at this point, I am feeling really confused. I'm feeling a little lost. I'm feeling really down. And if things don't really turn around in a major way on Thursday, yes, I'm going into full panic mode for this season because, again, if they lost this game 35-30, right? They went out there, the offense played well, and it just Broncos got the best of them in the end of it. That's different. But this game, they lost not like that. They didn't put up a good fight. They lost. They got blown out. Their defense looked inconsistent. Their offense looked stale, stagnant, had no downfield abilities, just like 2020. It was the same thing, rinse, repeat. None of the improvements we made in the offseason showed up and really made an impact. It was ridiculous. And again, I'm really pissed, and I'm starting to fall into a panic mode.
And Logan Ryan said it best, right? So somebody asked him, did you see fans leaving early? And he was like, yeah, like we all saw it. And he was like, honestly, if we're being blown out, beat traffic. You know what I mean? Like he was like, he gets it. Like he was like, if we're gonna get blown out and we're gonna play like this, beat traffic, man. Like leave early. It doesn't even make sense. It's sad because Joe Judge continuously says we're going to put a good product on the field for the people that pay for these seats, pretty much pay your salaries, and everything in between. We're going to put a good product for the people that invest in this team, and they didn't. You know what I mean? They came out at home with a great atmosphere, the first time fans were in the stands in over a year, and they did absolutely nothing to instill any confidence. Like I walked away with zero confidence in most portions of this team. And the worst part about it is like I have faith that Patrick Graham will turn it around, right? I think that the defense will get it fixed. They will turn it around and things will get a little bit better there, if not a lot better. But the offense, I have nothing to believe that they will do the same thing. I have no reason to think that Daniel Jones is getting rid of his turnover issues, that Jason Garrett isn't going to call the most conservative game plan of all time. And Anthony, I know you have differing opinion on this with me, so I do want to have a little maybe small debate on this. The drive where they were backed up to their own end zone, right? They're on their own 5-yard line. Jason Garrett calls an inside zone. He calls a quick out to Elijah Penny and another quick out to Kyle Rudolph. That was an uber, conservative style of play. And what it said to me was not only did they not trust their offensive line, but they didn't trust their quarterback. They admitted in my perspective, good teams say, wherever we are, we're going to execute our game plan. We're going to take shots. We're going to score points. Every drive, you need to be going into it saying, we are going to score points no matter how far we are away from the other end zone, right? But instead, they basically said to us on national television, they don't trust their quarterback. They don't trust their offensive line to get the ball into their playmakers' hands and move the ball downfield. They need 20, 30 yards of cushion before they can even execute their plays. You know what I mean? That scared me. That said a lot to me that they were not willing to run their offense backed up into their own end zone. They took the easy way out. They punted, and then Denver came down and scored. You know what I mean? Like that's really what pissed me off. And the play calling, you can be conservative without calling quick outs to Elijah Penny and Kyle Rudolph. You know what I mean? Like you can do more things than that. You can run a crosser with Sterling Shepard. You can get Kadarius Toney involved. Maybe allow him to get a rep in there. Or you can use Saquon Barkley on an angle route. You can do other things that don't involve throwing the ball 20 plus yards downfield. And Anthony, you mentioned this on Twitter. The Giants only threw the ball 20 plus yards downfield twice in the entire game, and one of them was on an offsides play that won in the first drive to Darius Slayton. It's embarrassing, man. And Anthony, like I know you might have a differing opinion compared to me. about the conservative play calling backed up in the own end zone, but it really said to me they don't care and they don't trust their offensive playmakers enough to even try.
Yeah, I don't think we actually disagree that much. I think maybe our communication was just a little, stale on that one because really what I was saying is kind of what you were saying. I think being conservative at that point is okay. Being conservative when you're backed up inside your own 5 yard line with a turnover prone quarterback, you probably should be conservative because you don't want to throw a pick and have them just walk it in 5 yards for a pick six, right? But the problem is the way that they were conservative. Those plays were uber conservative, and they were not putting players in position to succeed. The quick out to Elijah Penny being the number one thing. Like, why is that play really in this playbook, especially in that portion of the field when you are backed up in your own 5? If you really want to be conservative in that situation, you should just run the ball 3 times. You can probably gain 3 to 4 yards on each running play as long as you have a decent running back in the backfield and a decent offensive line run blocking, right? You could probably gain that first down by running 3 plays in a row. That's a pretty decent conservative play call, but what they did was instead just quick outs or sticks. The play calling sucked. The conservative mentality in that portion of the field is correct because you have to protect the football. What we were saying in our pregame live stream is the Giants have to win the turnover battle. They have to keep the ball clean, and they have to make sure not to turn over the ball, which is something that Daniel Jones still could not accomplish. He still turned over
And
the
win
ball.
time of possession too. I made
Win time of
sure to
possession.
point that out. I made
That's
sure
true.
to point out winning time of possession, and they got slaughtered in time of possession. And it was a major reason the Giants lost because the offense never had a chance.
Absolutely. That's completely true. And when we're talking about that portion of the field, though, backed up inside your own 5 yard line, we're talking about how the Giants needed to make it a point of emphasis to keep the ball clean and not turn it over. Yes, you do want to play call conservatively in that portion of the field, but your play calls can still have some creativity to give your team a chance of getting the first down. You don't have to play to not lose. You can still play to win and still play a little bit more conservatively. You just got to make safer reads and safer plays, run the ball if you have to. I don't know. The play calling I didn't like. The mentality was fine, being conservative. But again, when we're talking about this conversation of being conservative in that situation, we're being conservative because we're at risk of turning the ball over that close to their end zone, right? And the reason that we're being so conservative is because we are so deeply concerned that our quarterback is going to turn the ball over in that situation, which is a huge indictment of Daniel Jones. And it shows the ripple effect that his turnover problems create throughout the rest of the offense. It has a ripple effect on the play caller deciding to call these awful plays within the 5 yard line because he doesn't trust his quarterback to make good plays. And it has a ripple effect on the playmakers who aren't getting the ball enough or aren't performing at a high level, who have passes that, yes, are in the vicinity, but still not completely catchable because there's a lot that goes on here, but Daniel Jones' inability to keep the football clean is ultimately what damned the Giants' offense in this game and what damned them from being able to get a first down in a situation like that because they're too conservative, because they're too concerned that a turnover will occur if they call anything with any type of aggression. And that is serious. That's a serious long-term problem for your offense. If you're too scared to call decent plays because your quarterback isn't good enough to make those decent plays, then shit, it's time for a new quarterback.
Yeah, it's time for a new offensive line, time for a new offensive coordinator, time for a new quarterback. You can, write off the whole board because if you don't trust your guys to make plays and you don't trust your offensive line to protect your quarterback, you're admitting to everyone you have a serious problem. We saw it, and that's how I took it personally. They don't trust their playmakers. They don't trust the guys who are in charge of running that offense to actually convert and make plays. Before we jump over to the offensive line, which is the next takeaway, just want to give a shout out to our sponsor. Want to get advantage of your sportsbook? You need to download BetQL, the only app you'll need to make a smart bet. Their best bet computer model scans over 350,000 unique bets per year to give you a best bet recommendation for every game across all major sports and gives you the reasoning behind why you should place the bet. Their model covers everything from spreads, over and unders, and player prop bets. Don't want to use the model, prefer to do the research yourself? BetQL has all the necessary tools for your research needs. There is sharp data so you can see what the pros are backing, line movements so you can jump on betting opportunities in real time, team summaries highlighting previous successes against the spread and over under, and the team lineup, breaking news, and injury status updates. Plus, you can save all your picks in one place to track your success and winning streaks as well as view your rank on their leaderboards. Head to the App Store or Google Play Store now to download BetQL ASAP. You can also head to try.betql.co/fireside to get started now. Enter the discount code fireside at payment checkout for 25% off any of their subscription offerings. You can find all of this information in the description of this video on YouTube. Make sure to check out their BetMGM offer in the description in order to receive a free year of BetQL. Also, check out their sportsbook offers page if you live in one of the eligible states to claim free offers upon signing up at one of the many sportsbooks listed. Don't miss out on the chance to be your sportsbook this offseason and during the football season and the MLB season and the NBA season coming up. There's a lot of action to go and make some money, and I promise you, I've been using it, and it's been doing really well for me. So go check out BetQL in the description below on YouTube. But let's jump back to the offensive line, and this is actually, surprisingly, one of the more positive takeaways from the entire game. Now, did the offensive line play well? Not really. Did they play okay? Average? Absolutely. They played average, and that's all the Giants need for them to have a good offense is average offensive line play. Andrew Thomas looked great. He had an 80 overall pass blocking grade. He was one of the best graded tackles, in pass blocking this week. Now, they had Ben Bredesen who had struggles at some points, but Shane Lemieux actually looked good when he was on the field, but they had him on a snap count trying to limit that knee and, try to mitigate fatigue and potential increased injury for that knee, which has a slight patellar tendon tear. Now, center Nick Gates didn't give up any pressures, hits, or sacks, had a pretty solid game. Will Hernandez, what I noticed from him, solid in pass blocking. He was very bad in run blocking. He was giving up pressure almost immediately in the run blocking game, which was a pretty tough scenario for him. Of course, right tackle was a complete and utter liability. Nate Solder looked like Bambi out there. His legs were like twisting and turning. It looked like he couldn't stand straight. It was really disappointing to see, but we expected this at right tackle. They were going to go with a rotation. Matt Pert got some time late in the game and he got beat. He hesitated so bad. Von Miller was already by him by the time that he even got into his stance. So this is a problem, right tackle. The left side of the line, I feel pretty confident about. Center Nick Gates almost beat the crap out of Justin Simmons, who hit Daniel Jones a little bit late. Love Nick Gates. I thought he played well. Will Hernandez, I think he's going to get his game right. Pass pro looks solid. Run blocking was not very good. Overall, I was impressed by the offensive line considering the expectations. I expected them to be awful, and they were good. They were okay. And I think that's a positive for this team going into week 2. Now they have a massive competitor on Thursday against Washington with such a great defensive line. They're going to have a tough time managing that. But Anthony, when you're looking at this offensive line, do you think they exceeded your expectations? I imagine they did, probably for most people.
They absolutely did exceed my expectations. I was really impressed with the way that Andrew Thomas played. Of course, he didn't go up against Bradley Chubb, but I don't care either way. I'm still impressed with his performance. He only allowed 2 pressures. He had an 80 pass blocking grade via PFF. I put some stock in PFF's grades. I know a lot of people don't, but I personally do. Shane Lemieux played a pretty good game as well. Ben Bredesen did rotate in, but I liked what Shane Lemieux was doing. Overall, I wasn't too impressed with the run blocking from the team. I thought there were many opportunities where Saquon Barkley was getting hit in the backfield, or really there weren't any rushing lanes available to him. Could have been a product of the scheme, whatever, maybe the situational play calling, things were too predictable. But generally speaking, I was impressed with the offensive line's play. I thought that the offensive line performed well than most other players on the team, which is obviously a surprise because we've gone into the season saying that the offensive line is probably going to be the kryptonite of the team. It could be what makes or breaks the season, could be what holds Daniel Jones back. Well, unfortunately, in week 1, the offensive line was not what held Daniel Jones back. Instead, Daniel Jones and Jason Garrett held Daniel Jones back, which is also something else that we knew would possibly happen. So I don't know. Yeah, I'm encouraged by the way the offensive line played. They've obviously got a very difficult matchup to go up with on Thursday night. Chase Young, Montez Sweat. That's a really good defense that they're about to face with Washington football team. So hopefully they can string together 2 performances in a row and make it seem like this wasn't just a fluke. But until they have this game on Thursday, I am still going to be cautiously optimistic with the Giants offensive line. I'm optimistic because it was a good performance, but still, we know what this offensive line is on paper. We knew what it was going into the season and the concerns that we had with it. I'm not just going to feel like all my concerns are alleviated after one decent performance from 4/5 of the offensive line or 3/5 of the offensive line. I still need to see the rest of the offensive line get up to speed with the other guys. The right tackle position in particular was not good on Sunday, and that needs to improve drastically in week 2. So I guess we'll keep our eye on it. But yes, I am cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, well, hopefully, this is a much bigger competitor with Washington coming up. You got Chase Young, Montez Sweat, Deron Payne, some just phenomenal players on that defensive front, and a pretty solid defense who gave the Chargers, who have a much better offense than us, a pretty tough time. this is going to be a much bigger challenge for Andrew Thomas. Of course, he had a pretty good a couple games last year against Chase Young, but Chase Young coming back with a year of experience, some more pass rush moves, some more, physicality, I think is going to be pretty tough for him. Again, not having Bradley Chubb on that edge for the Giants, or rather for Denver, really gave Andrew Thomas a much easier time. So I think that they're going to have to play some good football. We're going to see a lot more dink and dunking, short yardage stuff. Hopefully the Giants can give Daniel Jones enough time to take some shots downfield. I think that Kenny Golladay needs to be utilized, and that kind of leads me into my next takeaway regarding two players who actually looked pretty solid on offense. Now with Sterling Shepard and Kenny Golladay. Sterling Shepard was by far our best offensive player. It wasn't even close. He had 7 receptions, 113 yards, and a touchdown on 9 targets. So he caught the majority of his targets. He had the first touchdown pass. He took about 37 yards for a score. He looked awesome all day, catching passes, presenting himself as a security blanket for Daniel Jones. And I think that this could be his best season to date. I think that Sterling Shepard, if he stays healthy and continues at this pace, not only am I going to be starting him on my fantasy football team, but I think that he's capable of being just a phenomenal player for Daniel Jones and the Giants offense this year. He should be another red zone target as well, a guy that should be frequently targeted in the red zone with his great route running and ability to get into those pockets of space. So aside from Sterling Shepard, I thought Kenny Golladay also looked pretty good. He made a couple of really nice snags, including one that saved an interception for Daniel Jones. He jumped in front of a guy, I think it was Ronald Darby, who was undercutting the route, and he jumped in front of him and actually managed to snag the football and save Daniel Jones's butt in the fourth quarter. The biggest concern to me, and the one thing that pissed me off more than anything, was this. Okay, this really got me going. Kenny Golladay was targeted once in the first half, but he was targeted 5 times in the second half of the fourth quarter when the Giants had already lost the game. The Giants had already lost. And now the Daniel Jones and Jason Garrett are dialing up plays that target Kenny Golladay. And some people might say, well, they were double covering him. They were, making sure they locked him out of the game. And the reason that Kenny Golladay is such a good receiver is because he doesn't need to be open to catch footballs, right? All you have to do is throw it away from him or above him, and he has the wingspan, he has the length to get those passes. That is what makes him so good. And there was actually a play in the red zone, that one that we were talking about before, when the Giants were calling, when Jason Garrett was calling quick outs to Kyle Rudolph, that Kenny Golladay had a slant across the middle, and the defender was about 5 yards away from me. It could have been an easy completion, maybe a first down. They didn't even look that way. It was a one read play to Kyle Rudolph. I don't really get it.
And that's something that I'll bring up, though, because that's something that I brought up frequently last season and criticized Daniel Jones for. If you remember, after the Rams game in particular, which I believe was, week 3 or 4, early on in the season, and for the stretch of the season, I was saying Daniel Jones is arguably, other than his turnovers, arguably his biggest weakness is the fact that he has become a one-read quarterback. He often fails to get past the first read and doesn't get to his second read, does not go through his progressions. When there is a hot read, like it's a quick slant to, Shepard, or if it's a quick slant to this person, or if it's just a stick route by Evan Engram, or in this case, Kyle Rudolph, and if that's the throw that you're supposed to make, he makes it every single time, even if it's not open. He'll look at it and he'll say, oh, this is the hot read. Let me just throw. He doesn't see, okay, let's look at the hot read. Is it covered? Let's move on to read 2. He just always goes with that first read, and it's become a damning problem for Daniel Jones. This is why our offense stagnates so frequently, because he's wasting plays in this fashion. You can't just stick to your pre-snap designation. Sometimes the look that you get pre-snap and post-snap are completely different. Defenses disguise coverages. Defenses do things that confuse young quarterbacks, and Daniel Jones is often, way too often, confused by the pre-snap versus post-snap reads, and he's often making these hot read throws that shouldn't be made. He needs to start getting through his progressions, and if he doesn't start doing that, he's never going to turn it around, and he's never going to be the Giants franchise quarterback.
Yep, I agree. I think the offense will develop over time. It's going to take, a couple of games for them to really get into the groove, but they have the personnel and the players to actually get it done. It just comes down to the offensive line protecting Daniel Jones not turning the ball over like an idiot, and Jason Garrett doing something that doesn't involve 3-yard curl routes and wanting me to jump off my 10th floor balcony every single day that he is the offensive coordinator. It's ridiculous. But let's go on to another negative. I'm getting tired of speaking about the negatives, but there is a positive coming up. And the pass rush is really the negative here. I thought Leonard Williams had a solid game. I was keeping an eye on him. He had a couple of pressures, a couple of QB hits. He had a sack at one point, I believe. Overall, maybe he was close to having a sack. I think they actually gave it to Logan Ryan, but he was right there in the vicinity, and he helped him bring down Bridgewater. For the most part, I thought he was putting pressure. He was getting through the trenches, but he wasn't able to finish. And Teddy Bridgewater was doing a really good job of getting out of the pocket, moving, and alleviating, his offensive line from having to do a lot of the work. He did a lot of work on his own. Of course, the one play that stands out to me is when Xavier McKinney was in his face on 4th and 2 in the red zone, and he stiff arms Xavier McKinney in the face and then throws a pass to the tight end, and the tight end runs it in for a touchdown. And Blake Martinez misses a tackle. That was the turning point for me. That was really pissed me off. Like, you can't miss those type of tackles. Xavier McKinney, just dive at his waist, man. Like, just dive. He was going like this. It was like a child, It was like Teddy Bridgewater was his older brother, and he was just holding him back with his freaking hands. And Xavier McKinney is just waving his arms below him, trying to get him. That's what it looked like to me. If you're Xavier McKinney, full force, run at him, man. Like, tackle him. He was just standing there, like, waving his hands in his face. Like, tackle him. You're a defender for a reason. So that really pissed me off. The pass rush overall did not get the job done. They had multiple opportunities to bring Teddy Bridgewater down. They failed to tackle him over and over and over again. I imagine Patrick Graham is livid with that reality. Azeez Ojulari had his first sack, but overall he did a really poor job against the run, could not seal the edge. He had a couple of opportunities that he got into the backfield and showed some good pass rush moves. Lorenzo Carter didn't really show up that much on tape to me when I was watching. He had a couple of pressures. But at the end of the day, like, he didn't get to the quarterback. He didn't really do enough to get to Teddy Bridgewater. And I think that was a little bit of disappointing. But again, these guys are getting their feet under them. Azeez Ojulari, I'm not surprised he had a tough game. It was his first NFL action ever. So hopefully these guys take a step forward moving forward, Anthony. But when you're looking at this pass rush, did you expect a lot more? Because I definitely know I did.
I don't know if I expected a lot more, but I expected more. I mean, I hoped for more at least. Because, yeah, I thought the pass rush was rather poor. I think that even when we did get pressure, the pressure was kind of like last-minute pressure while Teddy Bridgewater had already found the open man. So he just had to push through that pressure and make the throw, if you get what I mean. So I just thought, generally speaking, yeah, Leonard Williams was getting through the interior quite a bit. I thought Dexter Lawrence was getting in the backfield occasionally as well. The interior was doing all right, but it's that edge rusher position. And we thought that we had the solution with, Lorenzo Carter coming back, O'Shane Zimenez being out there, who honestly felt like a ghost for the majority of that game. I barely saw O'Shane. I know that Azeez Ojulari did play most of the game anyway, and he also wasn't the best. He was decent as a pass rusher. He had that sack, but in run defense, I saw him kind of fail to set the edge and kind of get beat multiple times. Lorenzo Carter, I saw set the edge pretty well on a couple of plays. He was doing a good job in run defense, and I was kind of impressed by that, considering that hasn't always been his strong suit. But it was like a night and day difference when you had him setting the edge versus when you had Azeez Ojulari setting the edge, which was weird because in the preseason, Azeez Ojulari kept setting the edge and looked really good in run defense. When I watched his film, I saw multiple plays in Georgia where he was able to set the edge. So I guess that's just a difference between the college and the pro game. It's something he's going to have to get used to and improve on. But generally speaking, disappointed with the pass rush. If there wasn't a lot there, it wasn't very exciting to watch the Giants get after the quarterback because seldom did they get to the quarterback. So definitely something they're going to have to improve on next week in Washington, going up against Heineke, and hopefully this defense can improve in that regard, especially when the secondary is playing at the level that it is, which I think we're about to talk about right now, Alex.
Yep. So our fifth takeaway is a secondary being abysmal aside from Logan Ryan, who actually was tremendous. I think he had 7 tackles. He had a sack, a strip fumble, which he recovered on his own in the red zone. Overall, Logan Ryan was the best player for the Giants on the field, aside from Sterling Shepard, at least the best defender that I saw. He was all over the field. He was making plays. He was causing turnovers. He was communicating well. Overall, I thought that his presence was one of the only reasons the Giants even stayed in the game for the first half. Of course, that fumble recovery was massive. Denver was marching right down the field and was about to score. And then the Giants get the ball back and then they give it right back. They don't even do anything. You have to capitalize off turnovers. The Giants are so bad at capitalizing over defensive turnovers. And meanwhile, when Daniel Jones turns the ball over, the other team scores immediately. So it's like you have to be able to do something. You can't just give the ball right back. Like, imagine being Logan Ryan and saying, we just got the momentum back. We turned the ball over. The Giants then run an inside zone, 2 quick outs, punt the ball right back and say, sorry, we don't actually want to give our offense any opportunities to try and move the ball down the field. We're going to give it right back to the defense. If I'm Logan Ryan, I'm like, what the hell, man? I just worked my ass off. I just got you guys a turnover. I gave the ball back to you, and you would do that? Like, seriously? I'd be pissed off. I know he can't say anything, but I'm going to say it for him. Offense, Jason Garrett, do something. Have some respect for your defenders that are trying to make plays for the offense out here. It's ridiculous. But, aside from Logan Ryan, the secondary was not good. James Bradbury got torched on multiple occasions. He gave up 60 plus yards, including a touchdown. And then he had another touchdown that he gave up. Didn't really give up, but he ended up getting burned by Melvin Gordon on the sideline. Wasn't even close to tackling him and helping his defense out in the latter portions of the game right there. So James Bradbury, disappointing performance from him. And Dory Jackson got burned a couple times. The free safety position, Xavier McKinney got really in trouble at one point when KJ Hamler was wide open. Nobody followed him back there, and he just dropped it. The Giants, if he catches that pass, the defensive performance was a lot worse. You know what I mean? Like, it was a lot worse than what we're talking about right now, and it was just because KJ Hamler dropped that pass. They completely busted coverage. When you're talking about a secondary that did not give up a lot of busted coverages, played really smart football, disguised a lot of things last year and did such a great job, to go out and do what they did yesterday was really disappointing. I think Patrick Graham's going to whip them up into shape pretty quickly. I think we're going to see a much better product against Washington. But we need to see good products every single week. We need to see a good product against good teams with good offensive playmakers. And by the way, Jerry Jeudy somehow escaped with just a high ankle sprain. I thought his entire ankle snapped in half. Pretty lucky for him. Happy that the injury isn't a broken bone or anything. But I actually had a similar injury a couple years ago. And I was at the doctor's office, and I was like, "Oh, good thing that your foot didn't. Good thing my foot wasn't broken." And they were like, "Actually, it probably would have been better that your foot broke instead of a high ankle sprain, because tendons never heal the same. Bone will recover, bone will heal and actually heal stronger. But your ligaments, they will never be as strong again. So you'll have to wear a brace. So you're always going to have an increased likelihood of re-injuring that ankle in the future. So in terms of Jerry Jeudy playing this season, definitely a good sign for him. But in terms of long-term health and that ankle and that kind of the probability of re-injuring it, definitely not a good sign in a good reality for him. But at the end of the day, this secondary, I thought that they played pretty poorly. Anthony, what is your take on it?
Yeah, I thought generally the secondary did play really poorly. James Bradbury had probably his worst game to date with the Giants in his Giants career. This was probably his worst one. And I thought Darnay Holmes had some pretty good plays. I think he didn't grade out so well via PFF, and I think maybe in the second half he kind of fell apart a little bit. But towards the beginning, I thought he did a pretty decent job. Logan Ryan was the obvious standout on defense. He was phenomenal. I think that he was really awesome to watch. I mean, he was just all over the place. He was making plays as a pass rusher, making plays in coverage, making plays as a run defender, and then after the catch, forcing fumbles and everything. He forced 2 in my eyes. I know the other one didn't really count. I think the knee was down, but still the effort that he was playing with, and just the fact that he put himself in position to almost make that play was really cool, because a lot of other defenders didn't put themselves in positions to make plays. Reggie Ragland is also another standout that I'll say. He played really well at the linebacker spot for the Giants. Just briefly touch on him. He had a really good game, and I was impressed by him. And he looks to be one of those low-risk signings that's actually paid off for the Giants. Looked really good in the preseason. Looked really good in this first game. But yeah, Logan Ryan, obvious standout for the defense. He was all over the place, making plays all game long, but the rest of the secondary is going to have to get up to speed. I'm not sure exactly what the issue is, if it's because we're not playing the man coverage scheme that we wanted to, but we played that zone coverage scheme last year and it worked really well. So why didn't that translate to this year? I'm not exactly sure, but hopefully the Giants can figure it out. Again, short week. They don't have much time to figure it out, and we need to bounce back in week 2. So hopefully we can have a good couple days of practice before we go over to Washington on Thursday.
Hopefully, my friends, hopefully. But I hope you enjoyed this episode. We'll be obviously covering everything this week, injury reports, and getting you guys ready for the Washington game. Tomorrow, we're going to go on a Washington channel and talk it up, and we'll have some fun there. But once again, thank you to our sponsor, BetQL, the only app you'll need to beat your sportsbook. Find that information along with the 25% off discount code in the description of this video. And also check out the special BetMGM offer in the description in order to receive a free year of BetQL and other sportsbook sign-up offers and bonuses. Make sure to subscribe below on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. As always, my friends, hope you enjoyed the episode. Take a breath, little therapy session. Have a drink, enjoy the beautiful weather, enjoy this beautiful fall weather. We're really going to hopefully remain positive this week, and hopefully we get a win, have some hope moving forward, and this team gets better week in and week out. That's all we want to see, just improvement from here on out. Otherwise, it's going to be a long season, but we'll be here with you, living it out just like everybody else. But hopefully we'll be a little bit more positive going forward, guys. And again, have a great day, and we'll catch you guys on the next New York Giants video.